All right, great day at Citi Field for the New York Mets. Bo Bichette formally introduced his first press conference, put on the jersey for the first time. Joel Sherman, our great baseball columnist, was here to see that. I haven't talked to you about this, Joel. What was your reaction to the Mets signing Bo Bichette, and how do you think he fits in this lineup?
I think fit is the key thing here. The Mets moved out a lot of established historic players for them, homegrown, McNeil, Alonso, Nimmo, and they brought in a new group, Simeon, Polanco, Bichette, and Luis Robert now as well. The question you have to ask is, do you feel better today about the core group? Even if you loved Pete Alonso, you loved Nimmo, you liked McNeil, whatever that thing is, the idea is to win baseball games, not to have a party with people. And the question is, do you feel better about the group? So Bo Bichette, if I were thinking about this, I am 100% certain he is going to hit. He is a savant of hitting. He can hit any pitch, any pitcher. He's very aggressive. His aptitude is great as a hitter. Do I think he'll handle New York? If that's 100% that he'll hit, I think 90 to 95%. This is a hard-nosed, want-to-win guy. I don't think this is going to bother him. Can he handle third base? 75%. Former shortstop, his knee is better. Anybody who watched him in the World Series on a bad leg play a position he never played, second base, and do it well, has to be encouraged that his aptitude and will help at third. But third is tough because the reaction time is short and you have a lot more to do than a shortstop. A shortstop essentially goes out for relays. There's a bunch of different relay plays for third baseman. There's bunt plays that don't affect you as a shortstop. There's do I stay back on a ball? Do I go in on a ball? So there is an education. That's why I'm not, even though I like the player's aptitude, desire, I would put can he play third base at a lower thing than can he handle New York? And there's no question to me he's going to hit. He's a great savant hitter. Third base, for a team that wants run prevention, that would be my only doubt about this.
Only doubt that you have there, and I did talk to Bo Bichette about it. He said he's up for the challenge. He did say that he's up for the challenge.
Remember, his manager, Carlos Mendoza, lives in Tampa. Bo lives in St. Pete. They're going to work. Mendoza is well known as an infield coach besides being a manager. The Mets brought in Kai Correa, who they see as a kind of infield guru. I think Bo is going to go early to St. Lucie and work with Correa well before even the February 9th report date and start working there. I don't think work, desire, aptitude will be the issue for Bo Bichette making a change in position. It will simply be, the ball's on you quick. Can he handle that? You've got a lot of different, we saw Jazz Chisholm, for example, who is a sensational athlete, maybe the best athlete on the Yankees, maybe the best athlete they've had in a long time. But he'd get lost every once in a while on relay plays and stuff like that because it's different. And so the question is, high aptitude Bichette, does he kind of get it all down? Does it take 50 games to do that? Does it take spring training? Does it take never and he doesn't actually get it? And then what do you do? So that is the only question for me on this player.
I think it's a fair question. We don't know until we see him get the reps. Before we go, I did want to ask you, because we saw yesterday, late last night, Mets get Luis Robert Jr. This is a little bit of a risky move that some people may look at because Robert Jr. has not hit the ball well the last couple of years. Sensational defensive player, right? We know he can steal bases when he gets on first or gets on the base paths. You wrote that you liked the Mets taking this risk here, especially with the deep pockets that Steve Cohen has. You like them taking this risk. Do you think this will bode well for the Mets? I know you do not know. You cannot look into a crystal ball. But do you think this is the kind of player the Mets should go after and should have gone after to fortify their outfield?
So again, if I were playing that percentage game, I'd say 50-50. But the Mets are the kind of team that should take a 50-50 risk because of Steve Cohen's money. Because the baseline for this player, if he just stays healthy, and he hasn't stayed healthy the last 2 years, he's had a hip, he's had 2 hamstrings, and he hasn't stayed healthy. Can the Mets medical people, he's 28, he's in his prime. He should be able to stay healthy. If he's nothing but what he was last year, which is hit some homers, steal bases, and at a good percentage, field the hell out of the ball, and beat up lefty pitching, where do the Mets, that's a 2 to 3 WAR player over 162 games and worth $20 million. As recently as 2023, he was one of the best players in the major leagues. He finished 12th in the American League for the MVP. He hit 38 homers. He stole a ton of bases. He played the outfield great. Again, he's only 28. How close do they get from the injured guy who was just okay last year, high strikeouts, got to deal with that even on the best day for him, to the guy who was in 2023? Now the question also, with the White Sox, he needed to be the number 3 hitting savior.
Doesn't have to do that here.
Here, you have Lindor, you have Soto, you now have Bo Bichette. He'll probably hit down in the lineup 5, 6, 7, someplace more in there. Does that, taking the pressure off, bring back 2023 for a 28-year-old? I think it's a risk. It is the absolute risk you don't take if you're the Milwaukee Brewers or the Kansas City Royals. But if you play here and this is your owner, not the Wilpons, that's what you do.
No, you got to take that. Last thing, real quick, I got for you. We asked Carlos Mendoza this, members of the media. We also asked David Stearns this. So I'm going to ask you this. Do you think this Mets team is a contender in 2026 as currently constructed? I know there's still some moves they can make, but do you think they're a contender?
I definitely think they're a contender because they're going to begin the season with 2 assets beyond whatever assets they have on the field. They're still going to have a strong prospect base and Steve Cohen's money. So they could fix this as it goes along. Could this all go like 2023 and be a complete disaster?
Don't say that.
I guess, again, 10%, 15%.
Right.
That this doesn't work out. Polanco can't handle first base. Bichette can't handle third. Senga and Minaya don't kind of come back and make a positive step as I believe the Mets think they're going to. There is an implosion possibility here. But again, the guys who build the big casinos have the Mets near the top, the high 80s and near the top of the National League. I look at this group as a group that should, and I just think, to me, Dexter, as I stand here, Senga Minaya. Now, I think the Mets will add a starting pitcher and maybe take some burden off of that. I think between now and the Super Bowl, the Mets show up the next day, February 9th in St. Lucie. They'll add a starter. That's what I believe in my gut. But even with that, the difference in this team is how close to their best do they get Senga and Minaya. Because if they add a real starter, those 2 guys come back, and McClain is what he is last year, and suddenly Clay Holmes is your number 5, or David Peterson is your number 5. It's just a different group. And so I just think so much of the variable from 80 wins to 95 is about Senga Minaya.
We will see how it all plays out for the Mets, but a good day for them. They add Bo Bichette, introduce him here at the press conference. Also, Luis Robert Jr. is now in the fold. Now, Joel Sherman and I, we got to wait and see what the Mets can do in 2026. Dexter Henry alongside Mike Puma, the great beat reporter covering the New York Mets for the New York Post. And today we saw the introduction of Bo Bichette, the new Mets third baseman. Very interesting. Bo, very excited to be here in New York. Mike, you heard a little bit about him playing third base, not first base, third base, but Mets playing a lot of different positions, players playing all over the place. What did you make of what you heard from Bichette today, from himself, and then also we heard from David Stearns? What did you make about what you heard about both Bichette today?
Well, you expect him to say this. He's excited to be coming here and have an opportunity to play for a team that he thinks has a chance to compete for the World Series. This is a guy who and I asked him about he was in Game 7 of the World Series just a couple of months ago, and just the hangover effect from that. I said that, at what point did you get over Game 7? And he's like, to some extent, he's not over it yet, and you want to get back there and have a chance to win it, and he thinks he has that opportunity here. He also talked about being reunited with Marcus Semien, whom he played with in Toronto. Seems to have a very high opinion of Marcus Semien, so that'll be a dynamic to watch, the new second baseman and third baseman back together again.
So one of the things I found interesting with this signing, Mike, was the fact that he'll be playing third base, has not played third base before. I asked Bo a little bit about that. I asked David Stearns about that as well. What would you say to Mets fans that maybe are a little bit concerned about him playing a new position and some other Mets possibly playing out of position or positions they haven't normally played?
Yeah, and the 2 things you think about are the corner infield spots, because you got Jorge Polanco over there, who's never played first base. He played 1 game at first base in his career. Now you got Bichette at third base. The way David Stearns framed it today is, hey, we're going to have a lot of times 4 shortstops out there on the infield. And he likes the possibilities of that. Now, it's one thing to have 4 athletic guys out there, and another thing to go out there and make all the plays. So, the Mets are certainly strong up the middle with Semien and Lindor. It's going to be those two corner infield spots that are going to be a focal point here as we head to spring training.
Definitely going to be a focal point. And then we also have to talk about what happened last night, the Mets acquiring Luis Robert Jr. What do you make of his fit? This is a guy who's been rumored to the Mets for a while. The White Sox have been trying to move on from him. Last couple of seasons, Mike, hitting has been down. 2023 was a great year for him at the plate. What do you think he can bring to this Mets ball club, and can he rediscover his presence at the plate?
Yeah, and that's the thing the Mets are looking at with this guy. It's the ceiling on him because, you look at Tyrone Taylor, who's a terrific defensive player, probably on that same level as Robert, if maybe not better. But the thing, what Tyrone Taylor's ceiling is offensively, whereas and it's not very high. But you look here with Robert, he's a guy who's had two below par seasons offensively, but he's also done it before at a very high level. So, and I think, injuries have played into it certainly the last two seasons with him. So the number one thing with him with the Mets will be keeping him healthy, keeping him on the field, and then trying to reestablish that offense that he brings because they know he can run, steal bases, play defense.
Yeah, 33 stolen bases last year. Could play Gold Glove caliber defense as well too. I think one of the other things Mets fans are worrying about today, and we got a chance to talk to David Stearns about it. Okay, offseason sort of turned around a little bit, but Mets fans are wondering what is next for this team. A lot of talk about them potentially adding a starting pitcher. Do you think the Mets will add a frontline starter between now and the start of spring training?
I think they're going to look very hard. I don't know. I can't answer.
You don't have a crystal ball.
I can't answer that question. I think the preference is there to do that.
Yeah.
We also know that David Stearns doesn't want to give out a long-term contract to, say, to Framber Valdez. We also know he doesn't want to part with too many of his prospects. So it's a tightrope to walk. But I think they're going to try very hard to bring in a frontline guy here, and they certainly have numbers in that rotation as far as guys who have pitched at the major league level, guys with high upside. It would be very nice to have that one shutdown guy that what he can do.
Yeah, Mets fans would like to see that. I guess to put a bow on this here and go back to Bo Bichette. When you look at him now in this Mets lineup, another right-handed bat, guys played in the World Series, as you mentioned, Mike, can hit in the clutch. How much do you think he enhances this Mets lineup, and do you like where this Mets lineup is right now as we move towards spring training?
I do like where the lineup is right now, and the thing Bichette brings another right-handed bat there, and that's something you lost when Pete Alonso signed with Baltimore, was that big righty presence in the lineup. So I like Bichette. I like the fact he makes a lot of contact. You don't see too many 300 hitters in this day and age, and he's done it a couple of times in the last few years. He hits with runners in scoring position. He talked about, growing up. That's something he always put an emphasis on, was getting those RBIs. So, I think this is a guy that the fan base is going to rally around. That is, if he performs at his usual level.
Yeah, that's what we got to see, if he can perform at his usual level. But a good day for the Mets. They introduced Bo Bichette. That's going to do it from here at Citi Field. That is the great Mike Puma. Covers the Mets for us with the New York Post. I'm Dexter Henry. We'll catch you next time.